All right, we are live. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just stand right by for a NFL presentation.
We go to Arrowhead now for Lift Every Voice and Sing as it's played in the stadium.
At the dawn of the 20th century, America was a country full of promise and hope for many. Black Americans faced a different reality, a nation separate and unequal. Yet their hope persisted. Pained by inequality, but inspired by resilience, writer and civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson put pen to paper. His words would become a unifying call, a hope for a brighter tomorrow, a timeless exhortation to lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing a rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on to victory is won. Let us march on to victory is won. Let us march on to victory.
There are forces that want to take us back to another place. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward.
All right, how it works.
Thank you all for your patience. I just have one other thing that I would like to share with you. If you just be patient with me. On September the 16th, Black Enterprise magazine did an article titled "Police Killed at Least 164 Black People in the First 8 Months of 2020." This article was based on an analysis by CBS News. Good afternoon, Sheriff Ferrara, Tri-City, which includes Fairfield, Sassoon, and Fairfield, Sassoon City, and Vacaville. My name is Johnny Con George, and I'm the president of the Tri-City NAACP. Thank you, Sheriff Ferrara, for agreeing to join us, joining us this afternoon to speak to our community. There you go. All right, all right. The Tri-City NAACP, as well as the African-American community in Solano County, is deeply concerned with the recent post that you made on your Facebook page. It is in reference to the NFL season opening presentation, which we just watched, and also the Compton, California sheriff deputies that was ambushed, which we denounced, and the individuals that stood outside the hospital celebrating the unfortunate attack and wishing the death on these deputies. And we also denounced that as well. So allow me a little time to educate everyone this afternoon. So Black Lives Matter is a movement. So when we talk about Black Lives Matter, we're talking about a movement that's taking place across the world. It's a cry from both Blacks and whites that African Americans are not disposable, and that they are tired of oppression, institutional racism, and marginalization, that they face every day. Sheriff Ferrara, I understand your anger against the ambush of the sheriff deputies in Compton, California. At the end of the day, law enforcement officers want to return home to their families safe. However, your comment seems to have implied that the NFL condones ambushing of police officers, and that their stance against injustice of largely unarmed black men being killed by the police is a fight that they shouldn't be involved in. Black athletes have always faced racial bigotry. In 1884, Moses Fleetwood Walker, a professional baseball player, faced racial bigotry. Jackie Robinson and Jesse Owens as well. And that's just to name a few. Black athletes have always fought for the rights, fought for their rights and the rights for others. That's nothing new. During the 1968 Olympics, Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised the black gloved fist during their medal ceremony as the national anthem played. Muhammad Ali protested the Vietnam War, and he was stripped of his heavyweight title. Arthur Ashe used his platform to speak out against Black rights. He also marched against South African apartheid and the mistreatment of Haitian refugees. And then it brings us to today with Colin Kaepernick, who was protesting police abuse largely against Black people. And the public, these athletes and the publics also, we would like to return home to our families at the end of the day as well. We would like to be protected and feel protected against crime and know that we do not have to fear the police. Lastly, to suggest that professional athletes should not protest and speak out against the murders and injustice of individuals that look like their fathers, that look like their mothers, their sisters, their brothers, and their childhood friends echoes Laura Ingram's attack on LeBron James when she suggested that he should shut up and dribble. Many of these athletes get pulled over in their expensive cars as they leave the stadiums after entertaining you on Sunday afternoon. So Chief Ferrara, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to our community. And then, as you know, I have just a few questions. I try to monitor our Facebook page and see if there's any comments or any questions from the audience that they have for you. But now, Chief Ferrara, speak to us. Let us know what's on your mind and how you'd like to respond to our community.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we can have a productive discussion today. First of all, I fully support the Black Lives Movement. When I made the post, I had not seen Alicia Keys opening to the NFL. That's a beautiful opening. I fully support that. That was not the direction of my post. If I may explain, when the two deputies were ambushed in LA County Sheriff's Office, that was a bad thing. Now, the person that did the shooting, we have no way, to my knowledge, of knowing if that was a Black Lives Matter person or not. So it's just an ambush. When I saw the video of the female deputy bleeding from the jaw and bleeding all over her uniform, it brought me back to a time when one of our deputy sheriffs was killed here in Solano County when we wore the green and tan uniform. I reacted I was much more emotional about that than I thought I would be. So I don't know if maybe I never processed that death properly or whatever. Anyway, I had a lot of emotion with it, and so I'm kind of sharing personally, and I've done some reflection. Anyway, then I saw the video of the hospital where the folks purporting themselves to be Black Lives Matter people were wishing death upon the deputies and hoping and blocking the entrance so we couldn't get medical into them. So yeah, that I think, as anybody would, you too, I'm sure, make you angry. Probably me a little more so because we've lost some deputies in line of work and in California, and you know, it's like a family member. If you lost a family member, it strikes a chord. So then I thought back to the 5 Dallas police officers that were executed a number of years ago. And the NFL said, nope, you know, we're not going to put those names on your helmet or uniform or whatever. And then now the NFL is kind of doing a little something different. So it's like, so that was more of my angst. I did not see the opening that you're discussing. That had nothing to do with my post. And quite honestly, I think it's a beautiful tribute and was extremely well done. So hopefully that answers that concern or where my mind was at. Although I will tell you, I regret the post because once I saw the post and I saw some of the comments on it, that's not where I wanted to go. So I would have deleted it immediately. However, I saw you responded and I wanted to respond to you. So I left it up until I got a response from you, but you didn't see it. And of course, then I deleted it the next day and I saw the email you sent me. So that was really a bad move on my part. I will tell you the thing after we talked about it on the phone the other day, the thing that stuck with me the most was the lady that was on the phone with us said, I live in Sassoon and I'm afraid, you know, that my sheriff made me afraid. And that hurt me so deeply because we don't have that stuff going on in Solano County. And if I made folks afraid, that hurts me very deeply.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that heartfelt response. And I actually, you know, I feel you, you know, when your fellow co-workers, you know, injured in the line of duty or actually killed in the line of duty. And again, as, you know, I mentioned on your face, when I commented on the Facebook post, when we spoke in private and now here publicly, that we condone, you know, the murder, the ambushing of these sheriff deputies, and definitely anyone that was celebrating or dancing in front of the hospital, wishing, you know, the demise of these officers. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that the NAACP do not stand for. You're absolutely right, Chris. Our Secretary and Legal Redress Committee Chair, Christina Lafacardi, you know, after seeing the post, she called me directly, and you know, it really affected her. And for me, you know, someone that close to me, that I advocate alongside with, just to see how she was, you know, just really, you know, hurt by these comments when we have individuals that sworn to protect protect us, and your post immediately began to divide our community. Blue Lives Matter, Back to Blue, and individuals coming on speaking up for Black Lives Matter.
Right.
In the climate that we have right now, when we have racial tension, where we have racist rhetoric coming from the highest office of this nation, as leaders, we have to be conscious of using our platforms. We have to be conscious of the things that we say. One of the things that my mother always told me is to always pay attention to someone that's intoxicated and someone that's angry, because they'll always speak from their heart. And so I know we spoke about this when we spoke over the phone, and I'm not sure if you were able to grab the data, but I asked you about the demographics within the sheriff's department. Were you able to pull those numbers, how many African-American men and women that are currently serving, not only as deputies, but also in administration, just throughout the agencies?
Yes. But before I do that, I'd like to respond a little bit in the sense that when we talked privately the other day, conversely, when the issue with George Floyd happened, I immediately denounced that, was asked to call into KUIC radio, I think the next morning, and I was horrified and deeply upset by what occurred there. And I have been very vocal in saying that that type of police activity is unacceptable in any time or with anyone. And so going forward, I would hope that the Tri-City NAACP and myself and whoever else, I would like to have some more conversations about maybe we can talk about some of these issues and get a little different perspective, because I can tell you, I do not condone that. And I believe that we moving forward need to do some different police training. There needs to be a different way of handling people, all people, doesn't matter who they are. So I just want you to know that I'm on board with that, and I totally agree. I need to put my glasses on because I can't see to give you my my numbers here. So we pull these after we talk, because I don't really hire people by race. I just hire people who's the best qualified. So I have 558 employees at the sheriff's office, and I have by ethnic group, if you will, American Indian and Alaskan Native, I have 1, Asian 28, Black African American 50, Hispanic Latino 110, Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander 25, and 344 white. So about 10% is African American and 20% is Hispanic. Interestingly enough, though, I asked a question, how many males and females? And arguably I am 50% of my department is female and 49% is male. I knew we had a change there. So we're heading in the right direction. But here's where you guys could help me. When we go to hire people, it's very difficult to get applicants from the minority groups that want to become police officers in today's climate. So we really need to encourage people to come and apply. And that's the way we're going to make the change, is once we diversify more, I think we're going to see that change. And I've been a proponent of that for a long time.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes, I calculated the same, about 10% are African Americans. But before I go to my next question regarding the diversity in the agency, let me ask you this. When you speak about doing outreach and the Tri-City NAACP helping you, we also have a large faith-based community here in Solano that could be very instrumental in the diversity in hiring, in your hiring practices. I recently read, so preparing for this sit down, I recently read that in such as Compton, because I believe the ambush took place within the Compton Sheriff Department. But I hear that there's a gang amongst the sheriff departments, and I'm not sure how much you know about this, but there's a gang amongst the sheriff department that go out targeting not only African-American residents, but also Latino residents in Compton, California. You know, and it's a tight-knit group of individuals. The sheriff of Compton will not, you know, disband this group of individuals that wear a badge, that wear a gun, and are sworn to protect that community down there. How much of that play a part in not only Compton, California, but agencies across this country where, you know, African-American individuals of color that may discourage them from applying to be police officers or sheriff deputies?
That's really a good question. So as far as Southern California goes, you know, I don't know, but I will say, just to maybe frame it differently, it's the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office. Compton is a city in Los Angeles County. And I'm not sure, but maybe the sheriff's office is their contract provider. So that's maybe why the sheriff's office was in Compton. As far as what kind of gangs or anything like that, I don't know. I do know that I used to teach at the police academy in Napa. And one of the classes I taught was ethics and leadership. Well, one of the things that law enforcement learned after the Rodney King incident was that there was a mass exodus from LAPD, rightfully so, and they had trouble hiring people. So what we have to do, and I certainly don't do here where I'm at, is you don't want to drop your hiring standards, because if you lower your hiring standard and hire people that shouldn't be police officers, then you can't be surprised that you have police officers doing stuff they're not supposed to. So, or you get bad hires. So that's one of the things that I've stuck to. I have quite a few vacancies in my organization right now. The reason being is because I have people apply, but if they don't meet the standard that I set, community policing, customer service, public service, things like that, I don't hire them. So that's why you really don't see a whole lot about the sheriffs. Generally speaking, the public has a pretty good thought of us, and you don't read about us in the newspaper too much, because I have a really tough hiring standard.
Okay. There was, you mentioned, oh, I know what I wanted to ask. So we recently heard, and I know it's not here in Solano, Northern California. I think it was across the nation, where an African-American officer was actually fired for speaking out against and for not participating in the way African-American motorists was being treated by her coworkers, her fellow officers. This again goes towards the you know, what I'm alluding to, this culture within these agencies that may you know, hinder, again, people of color from wanting to be a part of this good old boy, you know, network, or good old boy system. So I'm speaking of a culture which is not, you know, this culture is not limited to, you know, other agencies outside of Solano, outside of Southern California. You've been in law enforcement for quite some time, and I'm pretty sure you can shed some light or speak on what I'm getting at.
Yeah, again, I've been doing this stuff for 38 years. When I came into law enforcement in the late 70s, it was pretty much, you know, white male dominated. So, you know, fast forward 38 years from now, if you look at the numbers I gave you with my organization, half of it is diverse. So the nice thing I have is I have folks of pretty much every color and creed working in my organization. I have a deputy who's transgender. So, I mean, we pretty much have all folks in the community working for us. But, you know, again, with another organization or another department, another state, I can't speak to that. But I do know one of the things in police training that we've been pushing is that, you know, I hire you because you do a good job and you better treat people appropriately. And I think I told you on the phone the other day, if anybody comes to work for me on their first day, I meet with every employee on their first day. I sit them down and say, there's two things that I do not tolerate in this organization. One is sexual harassment, and the other is any type of racism. If that's your thing, then you're not going to work here. And so when you come before me and I fire you and you say, gee, Sheriff, you didn't tell me I was supposed to do that, I'm going to say, no, I told you on the first day, here are my expectations. If you do that, I'm going to fire you. And so I'm upfront with people on the first day to everybody.
Okay. And so that leads me to this, this question. And you mentioned that, you know, after the Rodney King, there was a mass exodus from the LA Police Department. You know, there's another concern of individuals, of officers, you know, these bad, and let me just, you know, I didn't mean to say this, but since I'm here, so we have bad officers that, you know, in every agency, that overshadows the bad things that they do, overshadow the good officers. Just like in every community, you know, you have African Americans, you know, that you know, that do things that, you know, share. And one of the things about our society is that, you know, we live in a society that likes reality TV. And so that's what, you know, what we're interested in. That's what we highlight. So the good stuff that's being done in these agencies, the good things that have been done in the African American communities, the Hispanic communities, you don't get that on the news. You get the small percentage of individuals that, you know, that's doing, you know, things that, you know, we don't stand for. And so back to my question, so I'm forgetting off. So then
I hear what you're saying.
You have these officers, you know, that right before they get out of trouble, you know, or get fired, they transfer to other agencies. And so what is the Solano County Sheriff Department stance on hiring individuals that may be, how far do you go into the background? You know, when they're leaving, say, San Francisco and want to come over to your agency, you know, do you wait until that investigation is over with? Before you hire them on, like what's the process of that? And how do you feel about individuals transferring from agency to agency to escape prosecution for their misconduct?
Yeah, what you're talking about is like transferring bad apples.
Yes.
No, exactly. That's what it is. So we do, and pretty much the standard in the state now is to do a 10-year background. So it's funny, the narrative, I think in California is probably a little different than on the East Coast. Where we do a pretty significant, I can tell you that the person you're talking about is a lateral officer. So lateral officers, let's say, for example, somebody that works at San Francisco PD. Well, he or she applies with me, says, I want to be a deputy sheriff with you. We're going to take a really good look at them. But I can tell you right now, if they've got multiple complaints in their background for excessive force, yeah, that's probably not somebody I'm interested in, and I'm not going to take them from background for that. But what you're specifically speaking of was some type of open investigation for a brutality charge. Yeah, I'm not, that doesn't work for me. So those are ones we'd say no to, as most people would. What the problem is you're seeing in the legislature right now with some of the legislation that's going through is that there was a loophole where if you resigned from a police department or sheriff's office prior to the investigation getting started, then it wouldn't go, thus hiding the investigation. So there's new legislation now saying, hey, if you've got a troubled officer and they up and quit, we're still going to finish the investigation, whether they want to participate or not. And then we're going to have that to provide to another entity that they may or may not want to go to work for. So there's been some loopholes. We're closing them, and I fully support that.
Okay. And then one other thing came up when you talked about your training at the academy in Napa. Speaking to a friend of mine, and I'm sure you know this character, Chief Tibbet, he was telling me that a lot of the I guess Napa's academy is one that feeds a lot of, you know, Fairfield, Suisun, Vacaville, and Solano County Sheriff's Department with cadets. What, if any, what changes need to be done there? Because even if it's turnover, or even if the old Vanguard, you know, has to be removed, because, you know, speaking back to George Floyd, this was a training officer. My understanding is that he had rookies with them that day. And so the message that he was sending to those rookies is that this is how we conduct business. And I'm sure that I don't know how long they've been riding with this Joker, but you know, I'm sure this is the first incident or anyone's civil rights or anyone that he's mishandled. Why these young officers, you know, fresh rookies out of the academy, was under his, you know, under his leadership. And so, you know, how many, thinking back to your knowledge from the academy right now, you know, how much fresh, you know, trainers or I guess that's what they call the instructors in the academy do we have? What are some of the innovative training techniques, you know, racial bias training, you know, cultural sensitivity training that could have not that could be implemented if it's not already there. So I guess I'm speaking towards the academy. What changes can be done to the academy where you know, you don't have training officers that could just really kneel on somebody's neck with their hand on their side, like, what, you know, I could do this, you know, and these young minds, you know, taking that on as, okay, this is how we conduct business when we're out on these streets.
Well, number one, I believe the Napa Academy was one of the best in the state. They've done an excellent job, and they were kind of spearheading a lot of the change. As a matter of fact, when I worked there, I haven't since I became sheriff, but they took, after Rodney King, they took, and the first 2 or 3 days in the academy is about ethics and leadership. And one of the things that I personally taught folks was like kind of what you said is, so you get out of the academy, they teach you how to do everything by the book, and they do a lot of bias training and everything. They're top notch. The problem is they come into whatever police department and the salty old FTO says, hey, forget everything you learned in the academy and we're going to do it this way. One of the things that I made sure and taught them is say, look, if you get yourself in that position, you need to come and tell us, and it's uncomfortable to do so, and I know you're afraid, but you need to come and tell me that this training officer is not doing what they're supposed to do so I can get rid of that person. So the biggest thing that we push in that academy, or did, and I'm sure they still do, is if somebody does something wrong in front of you, whether they're wearing a uniform or not, you need to report it. It's your duty to report it. And if you don't, you're going to get caught up in it as well. So I think that's the cultural changes. We need to have these young folks that are coming into law enforcement. If somebody does something like that, you need to stand up and tell. I'll tell you what, in the future, though, one of the things we're seeing with legislative change, another thing I support, is that you are mandated to tell. You have to tell. It's your duty to tell. So that is how we're going to change that culture, is we need to stand up and say, we don't support it. It's not right. And you have to stop. And that's where we need to go, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. Well, I had something else, but I lost it. So let's go through these questions. What are your thoughts about athletes using their large platform to bring about awareness to specific social justice issues, possibly leading to change in our country?
Well, I think it's fine, but like we talked the other day, in the sense that right now, Black Lives Matter is a national movement and has national attention. So this is our time. This is what we need to do. So I'm fine with that. I have no. You were talking about LeBron James the last time we talked. I didn't know any of that until you brought it up to me. So I've now since researched and seen that. I don't, of course, agree with Laura Ingraham. My only thing would be, I'd hope that they do it in a fashion that kind of like us in uniform. If you're wearing the uniform and you're doing the job, I need you to do your job. If you're off the field or off duty, do what you have to do, So that would be my only caveat. I'd like to see more of it, more like off duty. But then again, we have it's the social narrative right now. So I'm fine.
Okay. Yes, that was Laura Ingraham, who suggested that, LeBron James, just shut up and dribble. And, it just goes back to, how can you expect someone who, let me just be frank and just speak what's on my mind. So It's almost like you get, the oppressor, telling you it's okay to entertain me. But the moment that you begin to speak out about how your brother, your sister, individuals that look like your mother and your dad is being oppressed, is being killed, then I don't want to hear that. It's almost like individuals sitting from their porch of privilege, what they need on our necks, and then telling us how to say ouch.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to put it in perspective that way. But
no, agreed.
Yeah. So question number 2, do you feel that the sport world taking a stand against police brutality in some way promoting the assault of law enforcement officers?
No, I don't think that.
Okay.
No, and they haven't. I haven't seen any sports figure say that.
Okay. What suggestions would you give to the sports world in addressing police brutality when these players, especially Black players, leave the sports field and their families are subjected to police brutality? As I said, you got many of these athletes, young Black men, leave those stadiums in those expensive cars after entertaining, us on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and then get pulled over, get racially profiled and pulled over by the police.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you suggest, or what suggestions would you give the sports world in addressing police brutality?
Okay, this is going to be an odd one, but this is a thought. Just go.
All right, let's go for it.
I would like to see folks in the sports world team up with some of our officers in law enforcement that are African American, Asian American, what have you, in order to maybe form some type of a bond and an understanding. Because I got to tell you, I've got folks in my organization that would love to have the opportunity to share and find that common ground and see if maybe we can honestly, going forward, we need to educate people. And again, like I said, if there's police brutality or you're stopping somebody racial profiling, we can't have you work for us and you need to be gone. So maybe there's a teamwork approach or something like that. I just thought off the top of my head, but I'd like to see us work together more. And I'd be happy to do that with you guys and talk. And honestly, don't just hear from me. You can talk to any one of my officers, any one of the folks that works for me, and have them, say how we run the show here. I think would be good.
That's interesting because I was just about to bring up that, I've actually recently adopted one of your officers, one of your deputies, Roy Stockton over there. He attended our Freedom Fund Gala last year. The Freedom Fund Gala is what, is our year-end fundraiser, and we use the funds for, not only to keep the lights on, but also the biggest purpose of our Freedom Fund Gala is for scholarships. And so we were just excited that we were able to give out 5 scholarships this year. And we were giving, there was a diverse pool, we didn't just give them to African-American students, but we gave them to deserving students who applied for them, who took the time and energy and followed the protocols that our education committee chair, Mrs. Baker, put forth and her committee put forth. But so that's when I first met Roy Stockton, and over the the course of this year, we've just begun really good friends. And so I would like to see other officers, deputies like Roy Stockton, to get involved with the NAACP, attend our events, come out and speak to us. This whole COVID thing just really put a damper on everything.
It really has. And that's what I was thinking is I'd really like to come speak to you. I've got my public information officer is a rock star, as is Roy. So I've got several deputies that, and my PIO, that's his job, is to go out and contact in the community. And I think that having that connection would be good. Roy is customer service. I just promoted him to sergeant, so I'm moving along with that. But he has the qualities that I want my deputies to have, which is why he's going to accelerate through the organization. And I have some really sharp folks working for me. I'm very lucky. It's a good thing I'm old and on my way out, but they do a good job. So thank you, and Roy's a good man.
Yes, yes. So you say you're on your way out. We're not going to, press you for how much longer we're going to have you. But my only question is, I know it's an elected position, correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
There's
so
58 elected sheriffs in California. Mhm.
okay, so the African American, the community will have to elect our new our incoming sheriff whenever you decide to retire. But so what, in those regards, how does it work as far as preparing individuals? I guess it's like really nothing you can really no input or anything you can really do since it's actually the voters, it's actually in the voters' hands, right?
Mhm. Well, so the sheriffs, all sheriffs run on the same cycle the governor does. And the nice thing about being the elected sheriff is I'm very independent, and then I can stand up for things in the community that I believe are important to them. For an example, in Solano County, the concealed weapons movement's been pretty strong, and and as you've seen on the news, the African American community has been one of the largest groups now applying for gun permits, and that's true in Solano County. So we've been very successful doing that with everyone. So the sheriff kind of takes on those things that are important to the community, where the police chief is appointed by the city council. So as far as picking who's next, really, I don't have a whole lot to do with that. The only thing I can do is have folks in my organization that I prepare the best I can, to do the job. But it's an elected position. You could have somebody, from somewhere else come in and say, hey, this is, and then the folks decide, the county people decide. I would like to see, I've got some hard chargers in here. I'm not ready to retire yet. I'm really not qualified to do anything else, so, but I love my job, and as long as I feel I'm doing something good in the community, and I look forward to coming to work every day. I like seeing the young deputies grow, and so I'm excited about that. And we've been tested this last year. Right now, we have that fire going on over there in Napa. Before I got on here, I just got a report that we sent, I think 10 deputies over there to help. Because when we had the fire here a month or so ago, we had help from all over the place coming to help us. And as you know, there was 300 homes lost. So really, now's the time. You have to have somebody in here that knows what they're doing and leadership wise. So hopefully, I'm good at that. And so I enjoy my job. Best way to describe it.
Okay. Well, I want to switch gears, but before that, I just want to say that we definitely need to, the Tri-City NACP, and I know the faith-based community, because we work, hand in hand with the faith-based community here in Fairfield, Solano, and Vacaville. But we definitely want to make sure that, we do all we can to bring diversity to the sheriff's department. But I want to switch gears and just talk about, I didn't realize that you're also the coroner. And I read an article several years ago about the important role that the coroner played in the African American community in, ruling the cause of death. I hear that, a lot of, for insurance purposes, a lot of African Americans are, I wouldn't want to say played out their insurance money, but based on the way with the coroner rules, the cause of death is, in African American communities, it's been shaded in one way. Can you speak to that? Have you heard? I'm sure you probably didn't read the report that I read, but can you lend any light to that statement, to that sentiment?
I have not heard that. Now, the coroner, in my case, I'm the elected coroner, but I'm not a medical doctor. So I have a pathologist, a doctor that specializes in that. And so our job is to determine manner and cause of death. I will tell you that many of the deaths occur in hospitals. And so then the doctor that attended the death can sign the death certificate. So as far as that, I don't know. I know we do about 250 coroner cases a year. But that's a good question I can ask, but I have not heard that, or I'm not aware of that. I can ask the doctor though.
Yeah, it's an interesting article. I dig it up and I'll email it to you.
Could you send it to me? Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. I think it's something that you should take a look at.
absolutely. Hadn't heard that. Love to read about it.
Yes, and then the other thing, Angela Taylor, she's a partner, a partner of, I almost said partner in crime.
That's
She's a partner with the NAACP, and we're very instrumental in helping her organization, well, an organization that I believe she's no longer with the organization, but to remove the Indian from the mascot with the Armio school.
Mhm.
And so I know you and I spoke about it briefly when we spoke in
Yeah,
private.
I got it on the patch. Mhm.
Yeah, you got it on the patch. Can you just speak about that? Because this is definitely Sassoon, and I know throughout the whole Solano, but there's a huge, we're walking, we're living, we're sleeping on native soil. I mean, literally.
Very much so. Absolutely, yeah. And as we talked the other day, is my contacts with the Native Americans in Solano County have been due to the fact that with construction or road repair sometime around Solano County, generally like out in the Rockville area, most area up in Green Valley, we have run across multiple Indian burial sites. So we have contact with those groups. If anybody, finds it, we immediately stop. Of course, the coroner deputy goes out to make sure that it's not a recent death, if you will, and they can tell. And then we would contact somebody from the Native American tribe that was located in the area, and then we want them to be able to put the remains up in a proper burial according to the culture. As far as the Indian head goes, since I've been sheriff and even before that, I've had nobody complain about it. It's part of we think of it as a tradition. We're Solano County, it's Chief Solano. It's highly respected from our sheriff's office. The only thing I do know that's incorrect is the Chief Solano on the patch has a full headdress, and that is not accurate. It should be one feather, like there's a statue across the street from here with Chief Solano on it. So I know from our perspective, it's a way to honor the Native Americans that actually inhabited Solano County before us. So, but I entertain a conversation. To us, it's a tradition and it's a respected tradition, and we have no ill will towards the Native American community with that.
All right. And then another question. I know we're almost out of time. I do respect your time. I appreciate you coming on, addressing our community, just letting us know where your mind was at when, where you're at with the comment and with the post. But are you familiar with the open letter that African-American organizations throughout Solano County sent to local elected officials and also local officials here in Solano County? Are you familiar with that letter? Have you seen the letter?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What's your response to the letter? My understanding is that Mayor Lori Wilson is the only one that actually responded. And I could be wrong. Someone else may have responded. But what's your response, or what would you like to say about the letter?
Well, number one, I do have a response, and if you'd like, I can. We responded to it 4 or 5 months ago. Okay. So I will task Deputy Cummings with finding that. I'll email it to you, but I can tell you publicly right here now is all of those concerns we either meet or exceed the issues. So we don't have fully support, and there was one that was a little problematical. I don't remember which one it was now. There are 8, right? There's 8. I think eight concerns. So let me dig that up, and I'll get it sent to you. Okay,
I appreciate that. And then just like I said, we're running out of time, so I just want to end up by a conversation or discussion about where do we go from here, right? And then I want to share something that the San Francisco Police Department is doing. You may have been aware of it, But where do we go from here? We talked about, I suggested, you know, the Sheriff Department, Solano County Sheriff Department, collaborating with the Tri-City NAACP.
I'd like that.
We also have a branch in Vallejo, the Vallejo branch led by Jimmy Jackson. And then also again, I'm sorry, say that again?
I know Jimmy, yeah.
You know Jimmy?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just down there in a meeting with them last week, 2 weeks ago.
Awesome, awesome. And then our faith-based community, we have some awesome men of the cloth here in Solano County, very diverse, not just the African-American angels, very diverse pool. So we talked about us collaborating and getting together and, you know, doing some diversity. We could also, you know, do some, I personally wouldn't mind coming and speaking to the officer. And I know we have a couple of other individuals that just come to mind that would love to come and, you know, talk to your officers about, you know, diversity, you know, racial, cultural sensitivity. But what else? What else can we do together? You know, where do we go from here? And while you share, I'll pull up the information that I wanted to share about the San Francisco Police Department.
Okay. No, I think the more, honestly, open dialogue and continued communication, we need to do that. And that leads to ideas, leads to meetings, and leads to change. So that, if you want to know what I'm available, you let me know when and where, and I'll do my best to get on to chat with you. If not, I want somebody else from my organization be happy to. I'd like to continue doing this. So conversation, okay. I think is excellent.
Yeah. So let me just find this San Francisco Police Department. There we go. They took a bold step, and I would like to see. And so, you know, we have the Fairfield Police Department, Vallejo, I'm sorry, Vacaville Police Department, and Sassoon City Police Department. And by the way, I just want to say to our Tri-City, you know, family and our audience here today, I'm not sure if y'all are aware, but Sassoon City has no African-American officers, none. So I just want to put that out there, and that's something that the NACP is addressing. But this is a bold step that the chief of police in San Francisco took. And so this is an affirmation that they, I'm not sure, have you seen this before, Sheriff Ferrara?
Can you send that to me? Can you email it to me?
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes, absolutely. Because one of the things that I would like to do is to challenge, you know, challenge our agencies, Fairfield, Sassoon, Vacaville, and you all as well, sir, is to follow their lead. I would definitely send this to you, but also I would like to share something directly from their website. So you could actually go to their website as well.
Okay. Is it on San Francisco Police's website?
It just talks about it. Yeah, and it just talks about it, you know, in depth. So, you know, the San Francisco Police Department unveils Black Lives Matter poster that reaffirms values, showcases rationale from every corner of the San Francisco Police Department. And I'm putting that up right now. It should appear.
Okay, I see it's on the website.
Well. So just really, yeah, just really bold steps that's taking place, because, you know, San Francisco is very diverse. We have a very diverse community as well. And so I would like to challenge, you know, our law enforcement leaders to follow suit. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to your response to the open letter from the African American organizations of Solano. And then we'll be pressing for our other our 3 chiefs of police to respond as well. Any final comments that you would like to share with Tri-City?
Just thank you for allowing me to explain my position. I apologize again. I should have thought that through before I did it. Once I saw what you guys were talking about with the Alicia Keys things, I said, oh, this is, yeah, so that's not what I was doing. So, but if we can move this along to some productive conversation and we can move forward, good. I'm glad we have, thank you. I just appreciate your allowing me to appear here today. Thank you very much. It means a lot.
Okay. Yes. And so our, as you know, you're on a the phone call with Christina Laficardi and I, who's our legal redress chair, our secretary as well, and she chair our legal redress committee, and she couldn't be here today. She's just really emotional, but we would love to follow up with you, you know, and I'm not sure if you're involved in the faith pack that we have. I know Chief Tibbet leads that with, you know, Dr. Claiborne Lee with Mount Calvary, Dr. Isom, St. Stephen's is involved, and then just a host of other churches in our community is involved in that. Last weekend, 2 weekends ago, they, you know, they hit our whole community and was doing prayer all over the community, while the Tri-City NACP and other organizations was doing census and voter registration outreach. And so
my guys were there. I was out of town. I had a family issue I had to deal with. So yeah, a couple of my guys were there, and it was wonderful.
Yes, yes. And so that was Christina's sentiment when she said, you know, she's been living here, you know, grew up, you know, in Fairfield. You know, I moved from San Francisco to Sassoon, and I think it was 2003. You know, and you know, I love Sassoon. You know, Christina loves Fairfield, and just, you know, the last couple of weekends, you know, how our community came together to do voter registration outreach, census outreach. You know, pray for our, you know, for our cities. You know, that's the Solano, that's the Fairfield, that's the Sassoon and Vacaville that we love, that we want to see, you know, prosper. And again, as my recently new friend Roy Stockton say, you know, it's not about right, it's not about left, it's about forward. And so we can move forward from here, sir. You know, I think we'll be doing our community some tremendous justice. What do you say about that?
I love it. Totally agree.
All right. Well, we're out of time. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all of you who tuned in with us. I looked, you know, I was monitoring our Facebook page. I didn't see any questions, but I know our sheriff would be more than happy to answer any questions. So send those questions to us. And the next time we sit down and talk, I'll make sure that he gets your questions and give you an answer.
Okay. And I'll try to get that document sent today if I can.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Enjoy the balance of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.